Okay, so the topic we're moving on to now has got some pretty strange language. I'm going to go backwards. So the last word, quadratics, that simply means there are going to be 4 terms in the expressions that we're going to be looking at. You don't need to copy that bit down, I'll delete that anyway. Monic means...
No, they're fully booked.
So monic, for instance, you might have something like x squared minus 2x minus 3x plus 10. Now, the thing that this is a special type of expression where you've got something squared. Okay, and mnemonic just means that the number in front here is always going to be 1. Factorising, you know what that means. It means somehow we're going to turn this thing with pluses and minuses into something that's times together. Okay, they're factors. So, just to save a bit of time, I've written the line out. This is an example where it's handy to write everything out fully factorised. Now, exception here, I didn't do the 6 because you can see there's a bit of a pattern with the 3's, so I left it just like that. Now, in terms of what we're going to take out as factors, well, it looks pretty obvious that I reckon there's going to be an x, or it might not be that obvious, but a bit of practice, you'll see that, okay, there's an x there, and I reckon there's a 3 here. There's nothing that's in all of them, there's nothing that's common to every single term, so we're going to probably end up with a couple of brackets. But when I went to do it, when I do this, sure, I take the 3 out and I get 2x minus 6. The problem with that is, these 2 brackets, there's nothing else I can take out, there's nothing else that's common. But then, if I think about it, I mean, the way the textbook questions are, and I look back, I think, oh, hang on, maybe 3 wasn't the right one to take out there. So let me roll back a little bit. And now I am not going to take the shortcut that I said. I got tricked because I thought that I saw all the 3's. That's okay. This happens, you know. So, but if I do take the trouble to write it all out in the very lowest factors, I can see now I've got a 3 and a 2 common to both of these terms. A 3 and a 2, which is obviously 6. 3 times 2 is 6. So I'm going to take 6 outside the bracket, and then I get left with x here, and minus 3 over the other side. Remember, if you're not sure what to take out, just sort of cover up. You can almost cross them out if you wanted to do that, if it makes it any easier. I'm not too fussed about that. It makes my board messy, so I'll leave it out. Anyway, now it's pretty easy to see. We're on the right track now, because we can see that that is the same there and that is the same there. So I'm going to take that out as a common factor out the front. And what I get left with is an x and a plus 6. Now, pause the video, or at least when I finish speaking. I mean, you may not have even listened to this. If you read it, you can just do it. Copy the example into your notebook exactly as shown. Remember, when you get past the yellow column, you can take shortcuts with your working out, or you can discuss it with me beforehand. But for now, do it like this. Complete question 1 left-hand side, which is what it said in the yellow column of your capacity matrix. Then correct it. Then come back to question 2. So for now, the computer you've copied this. Once you've copied this into your notebook, the computer is out of the way. Okay, remember at the start I said what's going to happen as these get more complex is that it's going to be harder to see the factors. And what happens here is there's only 3 terms, and it's sort of clear that the middle term here, the 9y, has been made up of 2 other terms coming together. So we sort of have to go backwards. And just to prove that, if you try to do this as brackets, I've just put these boxes. They're just boxes. I haven't used letters, I've used boxes. And using the rules that we have, you can see that if I have a bracket with box 1 and box 2, and another bracket with box 3 and box 4, and I times those two brackets together, I'm going to get the product, or in other words, box 1 times box 3 times together, the product of box 1 and box 3, the product of box 1 and box 4, the product of box 2 and box 3, and the product of box 2 and box 4. So clearly there are 4 terms. Now, what we need to do, we need to somehow split 9y, this middle term, into these two terms, and we can see that these two terms in the middle, box 1 times box 4 and box 2 times box 3, have to add together to give 9y, and the box 2 and box 4 have to multiply to give 14. So box 2 and box 4 must just be numbers, clearly. And box 1 and box 3, well, there's only one way you can get y squared, and clearly box 1 has to be y, box 3 has to be y. And now we need a way of figuring out what times is together to give 14, but adds together to give 9. And just to make that a little clearer, we know that 1 and 3 are both y, so let me just change that out. We know this now, and 3 is also a y. I'll just draw over the top so you can see what I'm doing. Right, so it comes down to these, to box 4 and box 2. That's the tricky bit. So let's see now. If I have, let's just try the obvious one. Let's make box 2, and this can be trial and error sometimes when you get into more complicated ones, but fortunately with reasonably small numbers there's only a few ways you can do it. So let's make this 7 and make box 4 2, and clearly 7 times 2 is equal to 14. And if I come over here, I can see that 7 plus 2 is 9. So that actually works. All right. But don't worry, you're not going to have to do it. I'm not going to get you to do this every time. I'm just trying to show you that it actually does work and how we kind of get there. All right, let's rewrite it. Let's rewrite our boxes as 2 brackets. And we have got y, box 2 is 7, and then box 3 is another y, and then 4 must be 2. Okay. Well, the other thing we need to do with these, and you will, when they get more complex, you will have to check this. Just make sure, just undo them and make sure that it does actually work. So if I undo that, I get, okay, following the arrows, I get 2y plus y squared, and then this 7 times y, and then 7 times 2, which is 14. Oops, I drew on myself. Anyway, that actually works, doesn't it? So we get 2y and 7, we get 9y plus y squared plus 14. Not the same order, but it's the same because plus, it doesn't matter what order we have them in. Now, there's a simpler way of doing this. So all you need to show in your working is that you're aware that the two numbers in the bracket need to multiply together to give 14, and they need to add to give 9. And if you think about, then you need to think about the factors of 14. And there's only, what are the factors of 14? If we write it out like this, factors of 14 equals the set of numbers, obviously it's 1 and 2 and 7 and 14. Then really there's only 2 that make any sense, and it's those 2. All right, I'm going to do another example, Copy this. It is useful information. Copy it into your notebook. Do use another colour or you will not be able to make any sense of it. Copy it into your notebook and I'll do another example without just doing it in a more straightforward fashion. Okay, so here's the second example, and without going back over what I did before, we know that we're going to have an A and an A in both brackets, and what we need to do, we need to look at this last number. So we're going to have two numbers in the second position of the bracket, and when they multiply together, you're going to get 24. And when they add together, you're going to get negative 10. All right, well, let's look at the factors of 24, the set of numbers. It's obviously 1 and 2 and 4 and 6 and 12 and 24. And without just thinking about the timesing, the two obvious numbers are going to be these two. 6 and 4 are going to multiply together to give 24. How can they be arranged if we're going to add to get negative 10? Well, 6 and 4 make 10. So clearly, negative 6 and negative 4 make negative 10. Now, remember to check. I'll just pause it while I draw it. So following our arrows, following this one here, across here, we get negative 10 times A. And then this one here, we have A times A, so there's our A squared. We knew that was coming. And then if we follow the bottom ones, we get minus 6 times A. And then if we follow this one here, we get a negative 6 times... Oh, I wrote the wrong thing down here, didn't I? Look, this is the wrong end of the day. If I do that, I get positive 60. Clearly that ain't right. So I'll just rub that out and put in. I had it down here in my box, so by showing all my working, and I have a little daydream because it is like 4:30 in the afternoon, a little daydream, and then I go, oh, what was I doing? Oh, look, I've got all my working over here, all my stuff. I just glance over at this box and I can see that the other one is obviously meant to be 4. So I fix that up down here, and I now think, okay, minus 6 times minus 4, 2 minus, this is a plus, and we have 24. Grouping up the terms, let's put them in order. A squared is done, minus, and look, I've done it again. Let's change that to a 4, shall we? And then we've got negative 4 there, negative 6 there, that's negative 10A. And then on the end we have our positive 24, which matches exactly with what we started with. So if we don't have answers or we're in a test, that is what we do to make sure we are correct.